Now, this coming game could easily serve as a masterclass to remind us about all the important things we've learned so far. The notion that the king is a strong piece in the endgame, the fact that you cannot rush endgames, they're often far more complex than you think, despite the apparent simplicity of the position, and the notion that the passed pawn is the key to the endgame. This is a famous game, actually. It comes from the Hastings Victory Congress in 1919, and it's between Jose Raul Capablanca, who is one of the legends of chess, one of the greatest players ever in the history of the game, and he's playing Adrian Garcia Conde, who I'm sure, as the endgame approached in this encounter, thought he was going to save the game against the great Capablanca. But Capablanca has seen further, and that's what made him such a marvellous exponent of the endgame. So what we get in the opening is a really old-fashioned variation of the Ruy-Lopez. The Ruy-Lopez was as popular then as it is now. Bishop b5. White tries to put sustained pressure on Black's position when he plays Bishop b5, but they don't play it like this these days with Black d6. This is a very old-fashioned move. It slows down the pace of the game. It's a kind of Steinitz defence, where Black is content to set up a kind of solid and robust formation in the opening. If allowed, he's going to play a move like Bishop d7, then he's going to play Bishop e7. It's altogether too passive for modern tastes, but maybe it's not so bad. Anyway, Capablanca decides to treat the position simply by messing up Black's pawns and then playing his pawn up to d4, putting a bit of pressure on the Black central pawns before Black can castle. Now, Black hopes to be able to ride out the opening storm and in the end use his bishop pair to good effect. This is a rather ambitious view of the position, in my opinion, as it's really difficult for Black to be able to do that. The problem with this setup for Black is that White has the run of the game for at least the opening and the early middle game phases, and this is really a concession which most modern players would simply not allow. You know, you just don't allow a really strong player to have the run of the game early on, and certainly not Capablanca. Well, he takes d4, knight takes d4, and now there's actually a misprint in the Mega database which I'm going to correct. White is attacking c6, so I'm pretty sure that Conde didn't play Bishop e7 here. Instead he played Bishop d7, protecting the pawn. White played knight c3, and only now did he play Bishop e7. So now we're back on track with Capablanca just settling for good development here with Bishop g5. You can't do too much against Black's formation. On the other hand, Black lacks counterplay. So this gives White a free hand. White brings his queen up to d3. Black plays rook e8, rook fe1, and now h6. Bishop comes to h4, and now the first glimmer of activity from Black. He plays his pawn up to c5. And if White retreats the knight, then Black could probably find a good square for the bishop on c6. So instead, White moves his knight intimidatingly into f5, and Black's probably got to take that knight. You see, White's already threatening an idea such as knight takes e7, followed by knight d5. So Black removes the knight, e takes f5, and on we go with queen to d7. Pawn to h3. Well, already we have to take into account the pawn structure and endgame prospects for both sides at this time. And I'm sure Capablanca was weighing it all up. Should I exchange pieces? Should I not? Is the king and pawn ending winning for me? Is it not? If you determine the king and pawn ending is winning for you at any stage of the game, then perhaps it's a good idea to angle to exchange pieces. This gives you a nice easy game plan to adhere to, and very often can win you the game very easily indeed. So Black tries to, this is on the queen side, by playing a5. White plays rook e2, and now seeing rook a e1 coming up with uncomfortable pressure, Conde tries to exchange off some pieces. Capablanca is happy to do that, as he sees that after knight d5, Black is under pressure. Queen comes to d7, rook comes to e1, and now Black has to settle for rook e8. I mean, the problem for Black here, he's really got bad pieces. That knight on h7 is very poorly placed. It's going to cost Black some time to get back into the game. There is a definite threat here of rook e7. So reluctantly, Black has to play rook e8 and just admit that he's been outplayed. in this phase of the game. So Capablanca took, queen takes e8, and now another profound move here, queen to e3. Capablanca is looking at the king and pawn ending at this stage, and he's thinking to himself, this could well be a win. It's worthwhile noting at this point that knight endgames are very similar to pawn endgames in many respects. And so, if black trades, Capablanca is happy with that. If he doesn't, and Conde played queen d7, then queen e7 more or less forces the trade, as there are threats on the back rank. For instance, if queen takes f5, then we can go check, knight f8, and then knight e7 check. Game over. It's worthwhile noting, if we just drop back to queen takes e8, that white can't routinely win a pawn here with knight takes c7. That allows the opponent what we call counterplay, and black can move in with his queen and give an embarrassing check on e5. If queen g3, he takes b2, and if queen takes d6, knight f6, queen takes c5, and now queen takes a2. And this is a position Capablanca would not have wanted.
Black has his counterplay. White is a pawn up, but it's an insignificant double pawn to begin with, and black has now an outside passed pawn. Knights are notoriously bad coping with outside passed pawns. So that's not really what white wants. Hence, the game. Queen e3. Black's not interested, but queen e7 compels him to be interested. The queens must come off. King f8, knight d5. Short move for black to meet. Well, I'm not sure what advice to offer anymore, because black has some serious problems defending this position. If he goes c6, we have knight b6. That threat knight c4, picking off a black pawn. In this phase of the game, it is really noticeable how offside the black knight is on h7. And if he plays d5 here, then knight d7 check, and we pick up a pawn. And that's an important pawn too. So Conde brings his king into the centre. He allows Capablanca the chance to take on c7. At least this way black gets his king in the game. And now black plays a move which looks silly at first sight, but I can see what Conde is thinking. White took on f6. Black recaptured. White went a4. Black's idea is that he's going to play d5 quickly and try to utilise his active king. It's going to take white quite some time to get his king into the game, and so black's king is close to the centre. You never know, he might have some chances of defending this position. And particularly now, if white takes, king takes, this is a really difficult position for white suddenly, as the black king is threatening to invade on the queen side. So Capablanca unhurriedly plays b3, and now black plays d4. And I'm sure Conde was getting rather excited about his prospects of drawing this position. What he's managed to establish in the centre of the board is what we call a protected passed pawn. And theoretically, that's the strongest passed pawn of all. It seems as though white is going to be completely tied down in this upcoming endgame to just holding that passed pawn. He'll be able to move his king up to e4 for sure, but not any further. Well, turns out Capablanca has assessed this endgame better than Conde, and now we get a very interesting sequence of moves. White advances on the king side. Black just has to basically kill time here and wait. As mentioned, white brings his king up to e4. Black plays king to d6. White plays h4. And that move sets up what we call a breakthrough on the king side. White's idea is to play g5 and force a passed pawn. Now, black thinks he can defend against that by just marking time with the king. At an appropriate moment, black's king can come across, if needed, and deal with the passed pawn. Meanwhile, the pawn on d4 is going to stand him in good stead, because white won't be able to move his king away from the centre. But black's missed white's next move, which is a truly excellent move. And it shows Capablanca's understanding of these positions. He's obviously seen this position from a long way back. He played the beautiful move, b4, fashioning a breakthrough on both sides of the board. You don't often see this, and it's a real masterly idea. Now, what is black to play? The problem is he's going to have difficulties on both sides of the board. The black king is not going to be able to cope with two white breakthroughs on either side. Basically now, after b4, black is lost. If he takes with the c pawn, we take with the d pawn. Now white has a pass pawn on c4, and he's getting ready to create a second pass pawn with g5. And this matters in the variation king c6, h5, king d6, and now the key move g5, forcing a breakthrough. F takes g5, f takes g5, black has no moves. If h takes g5, we just run through. If he leaves it as it is, let's go back one move, white's going to take on h6. So in the game, Conde played a takes b4, white got his second pass pawn, black played king c7, and now here we go, the expected breakthrough. F takes, f takes, h takes, h takes, b3, okay, bit of a decoy, the white king can easily deal with this. King d7, g6, f takes g6, f takes g6, and white won. Black resigned this position. So an excellent demonstration there of the breakthrough, and as I said at the start, a masterclass in everything we've learned about the endgame so far.